Today's Frugal Friday video is going to be for the pattern called Ethel. This is from Swoon. I have a video already for this pattern. I will link it in the description, but for today's video, I'm going to be making a few changes. The original version of this pattern is for a crossbody. It's bigger than this. I printed mine at 85% and it does not have a zipper at the top, which is what I'm going to add today. The original version, you could do a snap, but it's really just an open top just so you can throw things in, but it's such a fun shape. It's quick, it's easy, and I think it always looks great. But in this version, what we're doing is we're going to be making this pattern into a pouch. We're going to add a recessed zipper, and I'm going to leave off the slip pocket on the back. These prints are from Jen's Fabrics. It is on pre-order right now. This line is called Birthstone Beauties, and each month has its own birthstone and its own print and design, and I'm kind of obsessed with them. So for this version, the front will be using this panel, and then the back will be using the coordinate, and the interior will be also using this same print. This is a cotton canvas. I'm adding this vinyl on the sides and the bottom. For my stabilizer, all of my cotton canvas pieces got a layer of the Royal Pixie Light onto it. On the main panel front exterior and back, I added a layer of fleece. That's the only two pieces that got the fleece. On these exterior pieces for the vinyl, the side pieces, I didn't add anything. But for the exterior bottom, I did add a layer of Royal Pixie Heavy, kept out of the seam allowance, as well as adding Royal Pixie Heavy on the interior side panel. You can see I kept it out of the seam allowance. So I did that on both of the side panels for the interior, and then the one base panel for the interior. So both of my base panels, the interior and exterior, both got that extra stabilizer. Keeping it out of the seam allowance will make this no problem at all for me to sew it on my domestic, but I'll still get that really good structure once it's completed. Since I'm choosing to add a recessed zipper, that is different than the way the pattern is written. So let's go over those pieces. Here's my two lining pieces. The way you will print this pattern, if you want to do the exact version as me, is you will print it out at 85%, and then you will take this top piece and you will cut the top off. I really wanted to put the recessed zipper up here and have the zipper tape be long and hanging out on both sides to even kind of make a handle. But where this is curved, I just didn't feel comfortable. I felt like it would just be a little too tricky. So I wanted to add the recessed zipper at a straight area. So I cut this. I wrote the measurement on the back because I knew I would forget. I went 2 3/8 inches down from the top. So what I did was I took my ruler and I had these peaks here at the 2 3/8 inch mark, and then I just drew a line there at the bottom and cut. So this peak part is 2 3/8, but of course it wouldn't be in the middle of the swoop there. So that is how I determined where I was going to add my recessed zipper. You could add your recessed zipper higher up or lower down. So that is how I cut that lining. I also cut a piece of zipper tape. I didn't measure it. I just knew I wanted to have plenty hanging off at the end. I did add a tab on one end. Just took a piece from the panel that was left over and I folded it 4 times to make a double fold. On this end, I chose to turn the ends down 90 degrees. I do have my zipper pull already added on here. I haven't glued this down or sewed it, so it's just kind of in place right now, but I will do that step in just a minute. For the zipper panels to make this recessed zipper, what I did was I cut these pieces. Now, this does not have any interfacing on it yet. I'm back and forth if I'm going to add a layer of Royal Pixie Light or not, but on the back, I measured 1 inch from the edge and I drew a line. What I will end up doing is I'll end up taking this raw edge on both sides, folding it down. I'm going to use my glue stick and run a little bit of glue over it, and then I'll use my iron to press it flat, and that'll kind of secure it. I want a finished edge on both sides of this zipper panel for my recessed zipper. It'll just make it a little bit neater and easier for me to sew, in my opinion. So I will fold down both sides on all 4 of these pieces. 2 will be the exterior and 2 will be the lining. You could do contrasting prints, of course, if you wanted, but I just really like this print and I'm leaving it like that. On this bag, my goal is to bond the top around this bag. I'm going to cut my bonding. I think I'm going to do 2 inches wide bonding to go all around the top. These are all the pieces that I'm going to need to create this pouch. I'm hoping that it will turn out good, but honestly, I don't know. I have not tried this version. I have no idea if my math will math, if my thoughts and concepts will look good. With my zipper panel, I'm going to probably end up trimming it down after I sew it because I wouldn't want it too much wider than this because this is about how wide the bag will be apart. So if it's way wider, that will cause the pouch to kind of distort and it wouldn't look good. So I'm going to, after I sew this on the zipper, we'll look at it and compare, and then we'll decide if we need to trim some off or if it looks like it's going to fit okay. But these are the steps we're going to take to make this pouch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off camera just to fold each one of these edges of the recessed zipper panels to the wrong side to that line I just drew. I'll have that finished, and when we come back, we will start making this pouch. I went ahead and folded back the short edges to that 1 inch line on all 4 of my recessed zipper panels, the exteriors and the linings. I am going to go ahead and sew on this zipper tab. So what I'll do is I will top stitch this tab here at the edge, about 1/8 of an inch from this edge. If you wanted, you could sew a box, but I never do that. I'm going to go ahead and sew down each of these sides to secure them. Whenever I have a 90-degree angle here, I always sew towards the fold. I don't let my foot go over the teeth because I feel it will distort this angle and I don't want that. So I will just start here, remove my clip, and then I don't even really have to worry too much about back stitching, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway, but it's not such a big deal. I'm really just tacking it in place. And then I will trim up the tape that I have hanging over, and then do the same thing on the other side. Let's go ahead and sew on the zipper tab, trim up the extra on this tab. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out one of these recessed zipper panels. For me, they're all the same, but you would want to use your lining piece. Place your lining piece right sides up. If your print is directional, make sure you're having the print going in the right direction. Take this edge of the zipper and I'm going to place it about 1/4 of an inch away from that folded edge. I don't want to place it right on top there, just so I have a little bit of room to sew over it without the teeth shifting or being too much of a big bump. So 1/4 of an inch is plenty enough room. I'm just going to baste this. So I'm just going to have these edges lining up and then go about 1/8 of an inch all the way down. Once you have the zipper attached to the lining, pull out an exterior. Make for sure you know how you want it to look in the end. So I want my direction going in the right way, and then I will flip it down, right sides together. I'll match up these short folded edges, and then I will sew. This time I'll use 1/4 of an inch seam allowance to go all the way down. Now what I'm hoping is that these will all match up evenly when I'm done at the bottom, but sometimes they do shift a little. It doesn't shift enough to where it's a big deal, but if you can manage to keep the bottoms in line, that gives you the best look for a nice finish. So you can see I'm just going over here, back stitching here, making sure I'm matching up those edges. You can move your zipper pull out of the way if your zipper tape is as long as mine is. I back stitched again there at the bottom, and now I'm going to fold these wrong sides together so we're looking at the right sides. I'm going to make sure they're lining up nice and smooth. I'm going to go ahead and baste down this raw edge, and then I will come back and top stitch around the other 3 edges. When we do this panel this way, we want to make for sure that we sew around all 4 corners. One will be a basting stitch, but the other 2 will be top stitching. Coming across this short edge, finishing it, and then I'm going to pivot and go across the edge closest to the zipper teeth. I want to make for sure I press it flat. I want to have a consistent amount of zipper tape showing all the way down. So depending on how you pull it, you might be able to get more or less. So be careful with making sure it is looking consistent. That will also help you prevent having like waves or bumps. Pivot one more time to go across this short edge. I'm going to pull my zipper down. Here is how the first side looks. Now I decided not to add any interfacing, and I can see it's puckering just a little. The reason why I decided not to add interfacing, I thought this is going to be a small recessed zipper. I might have to trim down even more, and it's going to be kind of supported on both sides. So I saved myself some interfacing and some time and just left it uninterfaced. Now we're going to go ahead and do those same steps for the other side to complete this recessed zipper panel. So now that we have this recessed zipper made, what we're going to do is we're going to find the center of just the panels, not the center of the entire zipper tape, but just this center. Go ahead and fold those two edges together. I'm just going to add a clip there to kind of mark my center. I want to take one of these lining panels, fold it the same way. You can either make a snip here, you can add a clip, or you can just kind of finger press and then match up those two marks. The thing to remember is that your lining needs to be right sides up, your zipper panel needs to be right sides up. You have to be looking at the correct side of both of these two pieces. Once you have the centers marked, now you're just going to stitch all the way across here. Just do a basting stitch at this point to secure these two pieces. Once you have that zipper panel basted into place, pull out one of those top pieces that you cut off of your lining. Go ahead and orientate it the way it was originally looking before you cut it. Then I flip it down, and now I'm going to sew this. For me, I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch to make sure these pieces stay in line. Once you have that seam sewed with 1/4 of an inch, you can choose to flip the seam allowance down or leave it up. I'm going to leave mine up. So I'm just going to push this piece up, just the top, finger press it, and then I'm going to do a top stitch across here. This is how the first side of my lining looks. I'm going to repeat those same steps to attach this edge of the zipper to the other lining panel. As a note, since I cut this and then sewed it, I did lose 1/4 of an inch off my lining. I'm not at all worried about that. I tend to want to lose a little bit off my lining anyway, so it's a really secure fit. So it's okay for me, but do keep that in mind if that's something that concerns you. I'm going to go off camera and attach this side of the zipper panel to the other lining, and then my lining's done. You could always add slip pockets or zipper pockets to this pattern if you want. Since I'm making this as a pouch, I don't feel like I need any pockets inside, so I'm not going to add any pockets to the inside of mine. Now we need to sew the gusset. The gusset, we have to use the exact measurements for the seam allowance that was given in the pattern. Even though I printed it at 85%, I still need to use that same seam allowance, because if not, the gusset could end up being too short or too long. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach this base to both of the side pieces. I'll start by having one of my side pieces right sides up. I'm going to take the base piece and match up this short edge with the longer edge here at the bottom. The short edge is going to be at the top. So I'll place these right sides together, then I'll use that seam allowance and just sew across these two pieces to attach them. Now that I have these two pieces attached, what I want to do is I want to butterfly this seam. You don't have to, but I'm just going to finger press it open, and then I'm going to top stitch down both sides of the seam just 1/8 of an inch away. This will allow the seams to be opened flat, and they'll just kind of lay a little bit better in my opinion. Here is how the first side looks. You can see my side and the base, the top stitching. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side piece, placing them right sides together and then sewing with that full seam allowance. Again, opening up that seam, pressing it flat, and then top stitching down both sides. So there is 1/2 of the seam going to each side, and so I will sew to attach it to these base and side piece. So we have the base attached to the two side pieces. I have a little bit of overhang here, just a cutting error, so I'm just going to smooth that out. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center by matching up these seams on both sides. So I'm going to put a clip there on those two seams, a clip here on these two seams, and then I'll find the center and I'll just make a small snip with my scissors to mark that center, so whenever I go to attach this to the front and the back panels, I'll know where to attach them. Okay, open that up, pull out. I'll start with my front. So I'm going to take my front and I'm going to find the center here. On this one, I'll just add a clip. I could snip it or make a mark, but there's no real need to in my opinion. So you can see I have the center mark here. I'm going to take this exterior piece and I'm going to place it right sides together with my gusset on that same center mark. Making sure it matches up, making sure the edges are flush together. I'm going to clip all along this straight edge. Now if everything is cut and prepared properly, I'm going to go ahead and take this top edge and match up here, and I should be able to ease everything in. If there's any problems, I will adjust, but let's start with this way first and see if we can get that curve to fit perfectly. So I just pulled the top of the gusset up to the top of the main panel, clip there. I'm slowly clipping down that straight edge. I'm leaving the curve for last so I can attempt to ease it in. If it is too small, I will make snips. If it is too large, I can always pull the gusset up a little bit. I have my gusset clipped on, so I have it clipped right sides with my exterior. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew with the seam allowance all around this piece. So this is going to connect the gusset with the exterior. When you come to the curves, go slow. Make sure you're not sewing over any puckers or creases. So you can see I'm using my fingers to press everything down, holding it in place, going slow, one stitch at a time. I'm pivoting slowly. Whenever I take out this next clip, I'm going to make for sure that these edges are still staying in line. If you don't rush this step, you won't have any problems, but if you start rushing, things will start creeping out. So let me grab my hemostat to pull that back down. When I remove that next clip, you can see it kind of shifted, so I'm going to use my hemostats to pull so they'll stay in line. Once I get past where my hemostats are, I'll remove the other clip, and then I will shift my hemostats down just a little bit lower. I will continue doing that, moving a clip, shifting my hemostats down, just until I get out of this curve. When I'm back to the straight part, I won't need to worry about that. So I attached the gusset all the way around. I'm not trimming up my seam allowances. I'm letting them stay. I did get one teeny tiny pucker, but whenever I push it out, I can tell it's not going to be bad, so I'm leaving it as is. Now if you want, you can go ahead and press all of this out. Just take the time to push it and check your curves to make sure that you feel comfortable with the way everything looks. I feel good with mine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to attach the back of the exterior to the center mark the same way I did the front. Then I will take the lining and do the same thing. I will sew the gusset, the side panels and the base to make the lining gusset, and then I will attach it to the front and the back. When we come back, then I will show you how we're going to finish this super quick, cute pouch. I have everything sewn together, and I went ahead and turned my exterior right sides out and left my lining wrong sides out. I wanted to check to make for sure everything fit before I came back on camera, since I'm just kind of making this up as I go. Everything fits so good. I am so surprised. Now my recessed zipper panels, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but they are 2 inches wide and 8.5 inches long. Let me show you what it looks like when you zip it up, just so you can see it does fit perfectly. It is kind of down low for the recessed zipper, so you may not want to go down as low as I did. You may want to go up a little bit higher, but I really like it and I like the size. I didn't want the recessed zipper panels much bigger, if any, than my gusset, and this measurement works out perfect for me. I would not change the measurement of the recessed zipper, but I might have it come up maybe 1/2 inch higher. That would be the only thing I would do differently. Looking at how small this opening is on the 85% makes me question that I should have cut my binding on the bias, but I didn't. So the binding is cut 2 inches wide, and I cut it longer than I needed to because I just cut a strip down the width of the fabric. You could definitely do this bag the traditional birth way by sewing the lining and the exterior right sides together, leaving an opening in the bottom of your lining or even on the side, and birthing it the traditional way. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do a basting stitch. This isn't necessary, but it'll just help everything to stay together, so it makes it a little bit easier for me when I'm adding the binding. I did nest the seams on the exterior. For the exterior, I had the seams both going towards the inside to just give a little more support on my vinyl since I had no interfacing at all on the vinyl. I have these seams for the lining. I had them going out towards the main panels. That's how I did mine, but I don't think it matters too much. But I feel like the stability is great. I feel like the fleece on the front and back exterior panels, and then the Royal Pixie Heavy on the lining side panels and base gave me perfect support. Everything has a layer of Royal Pixie Light except the vinyl. So now let's take this binding, and I'm just going to start clipping it around. Like I said, 2 inches wide, and then I just did 4-way fold so that everything was tucked in, no raw edges showing. I did take that over to the iron and press it flat, and so now I'm going to just slowly start putting this on. The crease is going to be where this top edge is, so make sure it's sitting firmly there. I can tell I'm definitely going to have a pucker there. We'll try to prevent it, but we might not be able to. It's okay. Where the print is the same, it won't be too distracting. If I was doing like my favorite types of binding, like a stripy binding, it would definitely be noticeable. So I have the binding clipped all the way around. I love how it looks on the front. The pop of the coordinating print is so cute. On the back, it just blends in nicely. No big deal there. There is a couple spots, like if you can see right here on this curve, you can see how it's trying to have a pucker there. Same thing on this curve. So when I go around the curves, I'm expecting to have to sew over a pucker on the curves. We will see what we can do. I'm definitely going to start in the back. I'm going to start here where I have this overlap. So when I laid down the binding first, it's just a raw edge, but on this part where I'm overlapping the finished, I just folded it down about 1/4 inch, and I'm just clipping it on top of it just to make for sure that I don't have any problems with fraying with my binding. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this complete pouch inside out because I really want to be able to sew on the exterior side so that it looks good. I don't want to risk it being wonky on the exterior. I don't care if it looks a little wonky on the inside. I'll try my best. I think I even have a pink bobbin in here, so it's going to probably look crazy on the inside anyway. It's not too big of a deal though. So yeah, I can see my bobbin's going to be pink, but it's not too noticeable. I don't think it'll be too distracting. I'm pushing this out all the way. You don't have to though. You could just turn it out a little bit. This will make sure I get the best chance of a decent looking binding on this exterior. So let's go to the back, right where that overlap is. And we're going to start sewing there. I'm going to sew 1/8 inch away from the folded edge here at the bottom. So my seam allowance on mine is about 3/8 inch, but it could change depending on the materials you use and the thickness of your bag. So I will just start where that overlap is, go ahead and backstitch, and then I will continue around going slow and just trying to smooth out the curves as much as I can. I'm able to flatten this binding out on the curve, and that's helping, but it makes me think that I probably shouldn't have tacked down that overage in case I have some extra that I could have kind of cut down. So that's something that I would do differently next time. If you're like me and doing it this method, go ahead and start sewing right after your overlap so that while you're sewing this and straightening everything out, if there ends up being any extra that you could trim off, you could do it. I might have a slight bump on mine. I did have just a teeny tiny bump where I had a little bit of extra, not even 1/8 inch, maybe a 16th, so it wasn't a big deal, but I would have been able to kind of shift it in if I wouldn't have already sewn over my overlap. Just a thought there. So let's go ahead and turn this right sides out, and then I'm going to adjust my camera angle so we can look at this and get a better view of my finished pouch. Oh my gosh, I'm in love. Look at how cute this pouch turned out. Recessed zipper looks great. Let me open this up so you can see inside, or hopefully, look at how beautiful it is inside. Plenty of room. This is going to be a great pouch for me. I'm keeping it, not even going to attempt to sell it. It is mine. This free pattern is one of my favorite patterns because of its options. It's great for a panel. On the back of the original version that's printed at 100%, here's a slip pocket, and it would fit another panel. You could get 2 panels if you really like to use panels on this bag. I chose to use vinyl on the sides, and you can see where I've been turning this bag right sides out. I have a little bit of creasing here. This will go away with time, so I will just let it sit and kind of rest for a couple hours, and those creases will look better. If not, I can smooth them out with a warm iron. I will just use a pressing cloth over it and the iron on low, and that'll kind of help smooth it out. I know it's probably an odd way to do a pouch. The shape definitely looks like a bag, but I just think it's fun and cute. It is for me. So this is the Ethel from Swoon, my version. I printed at 85%. I chose to leave off the slip pocket on the back. I chose to make it a bag where I dropped in the lining and bonded around the top, and I added a recessed zipper. I'm going to link the free pattern, how to get the fabrics, and the original version of how I made the Ethel. If you have not downloaded the Ethel, have not sewn the Ethel, please consider doing it. Swoon Patterns has so many of my favorite patterns. The original designer has stopped designing and was sold to another designer. She doesn't make any more patterns under the Swoon name, but these patterns are still available, and I'm telling you, they are some of my favorites. They are just so well written, very easy to understand. If you have any questions about the pattern, what I did on this version, or my materials, definitely let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a frugal Friday today and are able to sew up something cheap, something fun, something that helps you save money, and just something that brings you joy in your sewing room today. Thank you so much for watching.